Moment we as leaders, most of us, and the world are all drive profit, productivity, efficiency, and very weak in this other area of compassion, collaboration, slowness, connectivity. And so we're sort of, if you ever had pulled your leg or something, you start to get an imbalance, and then that becomes another problem, and you get back, and then you're like this, and we kind of like that for the world is kind of all imbalanced right now. It's not wrong, it's not bad, it's just imbalanced. And that's partly what we mentioned in when we first connected was capitalism is imbalanced. It's not wrong, it's not bad, it's not going anywhere apart from anything else. But it is imbalanced, and it's getting ugly, and it's getting, the backache is getting worse, and we've got a really strong bicep, productivity. Let's think about, call it productivity or profit. We've got a really strong bicep, but our tricep is pretty flabby, around compassion and care and connectivity. And that's what I hope this pandemic is teaching us, is that without that tricep being strong, the more feminine values of culture, things can get pretty ugly pretty quick, and people actually die. It's not like it's sort of, it's not just a thought.
And there's this is, I'm glad you started talking about capitalism, because I think, again, this pandemic has exposed both the upside of capitalism, the positive side of capitalism. For example, the vaccines that were developed by private companies in record-breaking time, but also the downside of capitalism, i.e., the people that get left behind, the people that don't have enough money to put food on their table, things like that. And there's one thing, Nick, that I've thought about for a while is, I think oftentimes, especially nowadays, we get caught in binary thinking. Like, you're either on this side, or you're either for capitalism or you're against capitalism. You're either for the police or you're against the police. You're either for racial justice or you're against race. You either think climate change is a Chinese hoax or you think it's real. And the truth is reality is much messier than that. So you can be for capitalism, which I think you and I both would say there are plenty of benefits of capitalism, but also we can also note that there are problems with capitalism. And even the most free market thinkers out there, the Milton Friedmans of the world, the Edmund Burkes of the world, even who was the original? He wrote The Wealth of Nations. For some reason, the name is not coming to mind. Adam Smith. Even these fundamental capitalist free market type thinkers recognize that there were parts of capitalism, we call them market failures. There were things that capitalism could not address. And so, tying this into what we were talking about earlier, I don't think capitalism can answer questions about purpose and meaning and truth. Like capitalism doesn't provide that, although lately in modern Western societies, it seems to try. Like capitalism seems to, in other words, if you get that nice car, or if you wear that dress that Kim Kardashian's wearing, or if you get that expensive watch or house and post it on social media, that'll suddenly give your life meaning. And what you find is it doesn't necessarily work that way. I can tell you that I'm 48 years old, and I've been very fortunate to be successful in business. I made more money than I ever thought I would make, frankly. And I can tell you my experience, Nick, has been, it hasn't made me any happier really at all. Money does not provide answers to what I would consider the most important questions. Why are we here? What is our purpose? What should we be doing with our lives? What's a good way to spend your life? So talk a little bit about how capitalism, your views on capitalism with purpose.
So signposting for our listeners, this is really a fractal version, the same conversation as science and wisdom. In capitalism, we call it profit, the profit motive and productivity drivers. And then we call it purpose, which is the sort of convenient way of saying meaning, social contribution, ecological footprint reduction, blah, 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 all that kind of stuff. So really that sort of analogy I've put about, the if we're all productivity and we're all fast and we just got to make money, all bicep, no tricep, it's the same as capitalism, which is all profit, no human value, human care. And again, we want to right ourselves. So I talk a lot about in my books about recalibrating capitalism, not trying to destroy it. I'm a capitalist. I've been an entrepreneur since I was 24. I love getting up in the morning and going, what am I going to create today? Which I couldn't do in the public sector, and I couldn't do it probably for a non-profit either. And I love that sheer rush of creative possibility and potential. I did a keynote for Pfizer a few weeks ago. Amazing that they pulled off a incredible task of finding a vaccine, partly because, well, this is the CEO, the ex-CEO's story. He thought it was interesting, this mRNA stuff, and took a punt, took a risk, which the government probably would never have done, too many issues and risks and what. So that's amazing, right? But as you said, if we're all bicep and we aren't then treating our workers in abattoirs or delivery people and taking care of them, and care isn't about productivity. It's not efficient. Care is not efficient. It's one of the things you learn as a carer, whether you're a parent or a carer of an old person, is it's not efficient. You get nothing done when you're trying to homeschool, right? You get there's no tick box of goals that day. It's just, do you get through? Has everyone had an okay time? And, are we good connected? Are we all still connected, or we need to diagnose the fight we had earlier, right? So for me, this form of capitalism that is potentially emergent, which I call regenerative capitalism, just for want of a better term, or connected capitalism, is about saying, listen, there's nothing wrong with capitalism. Capitalism is amazing. But if it's only about profit and productivity and efficiency, it causes really a lot of pain for a lot of people, including, I would say, most of the people making all the money at the top end. They're just as miserable as the people on the bottom end. They just got more money. And you can see that in some of our billionaires at the moment. You can see clear evidence that from the point of view of a wisdom lens, these people are not having, great times in their inner reality, in their inner consciousness, in their relationships. As you said, you've made more money than you've ever thought. I have as well. And the things that brought me most juice in my life are nothing to do with money.
Me too. Me too.
In fact, I did a bizarre thing last night. I found my old receipts file from all my stuff I've ever bought of any high value, which I kept in case of an insurance claim. They say, oh, can you sell us the receipts for all those suits that burned? I'm like, what? I didn't. So I learned early on, keep your receipts. So I was going through them, and first of all, learning 95% of all the stuff I bought in my 20s, I don't own anymore. And probably didn't, second thing I realized is I had loads of really cool clothes, cool designer stuff. There were upper class Virgin flights to New York receipts. There were headphones I bought because I was bored in a duty free shop. I'm consulting to someone. I was just looking at going, this was just, the receipts were about as valuable as the stuff was. And I don't regret any of it. I had great times. I had some crazy fun, great times. And I still love beautiful things. I still love nicely designed furniture, etc. Right? But it's just like a yet another realization that was not what's brought my life joy and meaning. These little receipts, and just like I used to see them on the floor, they were, sort of like maybe 1,000 receipts, which I'm actually going to burn in the fire in the next few days.
Nice.
Just a marker of capitalism does not create connection, but there's nothing wrong with it. There's only something wrong with it when it goes out of balance again. And so this regenerative capitalism, I'm a co-founder of a regenerative business consultancy called Future Makers with my colleague. So I run 2 different companies. And this regenerative business thing is really exciting because it's like, what happens if we really put that, back to what we talked about at the very beginning, if we put consciousness on an equal pegging with matter, so that ought and is are equal, matter and consciousness, product and purpose are equal, one's not better than the other, masculine, feminine, yin, yang, whatever, everyone's got their own things. What happens if we really redesign companies? And it has to be from the inside out. Can't just be through government policy. It has to be because people want to. What happens to business models, delivery models, service models, when we really put caring, creativity, collaboration, all the C's into our business models? And it's amazingly exciting.